Okay. Yeah. So we thought we'd start just if everybody wants to go around and just introduce themselves and maybe like, what did we say, just a short intro, maybe like one initiative that you're doing this year in terms of, sustainability or things like that. So, okay, so would you like to start?
I'll go first. Laura Casal. I work for Progressive Insurance as a leadership development consultant, and I'm the author's wife.
It's a dedication in the book.
And I am working towards everything he has in the book for our home, trying to prepare for everything that's coming.
I'm Elizabeth Mathis. I'm the Executive Director of the Dairy and Land Trust, and we actually hold our main fundraiser in September, and this past year we rebranded it as Celebrate the Land, which is what we're all about, but we made an effort to make it as elegant and as sustainable as possible. So kind of like turning fundraising dinners on their head and saying it's not going to just be about food waste and rubber chicken and stuff like that. So it's been really great. We partnered with one of our local thrift stores to obtain vintage china and do all sorts of things like that.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay.
I'm Dominic DeMarco. I'm a friend of the author, and I don't have any specific sustainability, but all I can say is from knowing Sam, much more aware of it.
Okay. So we're talking about like one initiative that you are trying to do for this year, and introduce yourself and your company. And
okay, so I'm Carrie Kling. I've been a renewable energy developer for about 20 years, so wind and solar, energy storage, and my initiative this year is to sell the Smart Flower, which is a kind of cool, innovative solar design that you can have at your home or you can use for business.
Are you installing that at Cloud 10?
Where is that?
So it's a flower?
It's 17 feet. It's a solar array that opens like a flower, and it tracks the sun.
That's cool.
Austrian design is pretty cool.
Wow.
I'll see a follower.
Wow.
Okay. Leslie.
Hi everyone, I'm Leslie Kumar. I'm the event manager here at HAYVN. And some things that we practice at home already are recycling and keeping all the lights off when we're not around. And I shop sustainably as well for my clothing.
You always dress beautifully, so you have to model
So
that.
that's sustainable.
Yeah.
I'm Kathy Alfondre. I'm a author with Sam, the same publisher, but in my town, Easton, I'm involved in the Energy Environment Task Force, and we are trying to do a solar installation over the parking lot at the high school this year. So that's the current initiative.
Which town? I'm sorry, which high school?
It's actually shared with Reading, so Joel Barlow High School.
I'm Jen Grace. I'm the founder of Publisher Purpose, and I got the joy of working with Sam on this book and Kathy on her book. And for me, my goal, I guess 2026, is to help more people like Sam and topics like this to help impact more people.
Hi everyone, my name is Carrie McDevitt. I work for Impact Growth Partners. I'm a B Corp consultant, meaning I help businesses like HAYVN become what's called a certified B Corp. So I'd like to think in small ways by helping, in big ways by helping businesses of all sizes, helping them to become more sustainable and be focused not only on profit, but on people and purpose and the planet. So, but in my little ways at home, I'm trying to get my teenage son to not throw his yogurt containers in the regular garbage. Because he doesn't think that they actually recycle.
That may be a losing battle.
I'm fighting that battle at home, but we do compost, although again, fighting the battles with the teenagers, but otherwise, all good.
So my name is Soledad Mazziosi. I'm the founder of Thinking Beyond Business, that is a sustainability consultancy firm, and for 4 years we've been helping companies in Connecticut incorporate one way or another, sustainability into their business models in different ways. Right now, I'm starting to collaborate for 2026 on my own with an organization called Rewilding in Argentina that is focusing on land conservation and reestablishing ecosystems in Patagonia and in the north of Argentina. They're doing an amazing project that is incorporating Brazil, Bolivia, and Paraguay, and I plan to help them from here, so I'm really excited about that. At home also, we did a big renovation of the home, and we installed heat pumps, which has been a challenge on how to use them properly. Composting, and also struggling to, I think my goal is to use less plastic this year, and Sustainable Westports, that I'm also part of, is launching an initiative in order for us, different ways for us to do that. That's it. Really happy to be here.
My name's Jen, and I'm an artist and graphic designer, and I think one of the biggest things that we've been doing in our house and continuing to try to do is less food waste. So it means I go to the grocery store a little bit more often, but we're not accidentally tossing things because we misbought or got things wrong.
I'm Amy Sarbanowski. I'm the president of the Darien Land Trust. I work with Elizabeth. And one initiative I'm working on right now is a foundation grant for land conservation to help provide money to make our second largest public property more sustainable by removing invasive plants, which are threatening to take over larger and larger areas, and planting native plants in their place and native trees, so we have more sustainability in the forest and the trailhead that we're building.
Where is that?
It's Olson Woods Pia Santini Preserve, and it's we're going to build a new entrance on White Street with a trailhead, and there's currently, if you'd like to go walk the trails, you go to Heather Lane, which is right down by the Stamford border, and just go to the end of the cul-de-sac, and there's 3 little parking spaces, and you can just walk through the trails, and there's a big giant lagoon in the middle, and you see some beautiful heron and birds sweeping over the pond sometimes.
I know we do a walk in the morning. We walk from here over to Selleck Woods.
Dunlap,
Yeah, which is awesome. So that's it. You're part of the morning walk.
Hi everyone, I'm Leonora Rhodes. I'm a physician turned life coach and corporate trainer. I do a few things. I kayak and pick up trash every time I kayak on Peach Island, which is a little island off Norwalk, which just brings me so much joy. It's my husband and I always joke it's a drop in the ocean, but it makes us feel good. I'm getting involved with the Manresa Island project as a volunteer, and I am really wanting to become one of their nature guides, because I'm obsessed with the wildlife on the shore. So there's 2 things I'm doing.
So I'm Felicia, founder of HAYVN. I think I met and know most of you. Let's see, in terms of my initiative for this year, beyond just we want to get all the towns together and not have silos. I mean, there's so much going on everywhere, and maybe everybody's already kind of doing this, but I feel like Leslie and I have just talked about we really want to be a hub for it, and Sam's been with us from the beginning trying to do that too. So thank you. And then also on a personal composting, we do compost here. I'm looking at this a piece of equipment called Mill. Do you know Mill? And I don't know, Julia Dreyfus always talks about it on her podcast.
It's the composting thing?
I'm curious about it. And
It
instantly turns it into, so I want to explore that and maybe implement that if it's worth it. So I don't want to spend too much more time, but I do want to just welcome you to HAYVN. We are kicking off the year with all these sustainable and social impact events. Our next one is going to be,
April 23rd
okay,
here, and it's themed the Sustainable Closet.
Ooh.
So we're gonna have a woman here who, this is her business, and she educates people on how to edit your closet, how to shop sustainably, and then we're also gonna have a bit of a pop-up with another vendor who will have some clothing items.
so good. But yeah, and I think most of you know HAYVN, so I'm not gonna go into too much. We have a lot of events going on and activities, and as well as we are a B Corp and involved in the B Corp community. So thank you guys for being there for that. So without further ado, I want to turn this over to Sam. Sam has been together, we've been spearheading this sustainable group. He is a font of so much information, and he had shared with me his book pre-release, so I was really excited about that and honored to be part of the process. And you've been working on this for a long time, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, 2 years.
Yeah. So I'm going to turn it over to you
Thank you.
to continue. So
Thank you, Felicia. Thanks, Leslie, for organizing and bringing everything together. That's really nice. And thanks, everybody, for coming. Oops. Okay. So I want to kind of do this full circle, a little bit of what Felicia's talking about. So in 2021, I was working for Anthem, which is the giant health insurer, and it was during COVID, and I was exploring a lot of like seemingly bizarre ideas. How can we use satellite mapping to track the 5 people in America who have COVID, and so they won't infect anybody else? I mean, it was very naive, and then asking some questions. Well, what if we could map smoke? What if we could map heat islands? What if we could map flooding? What if we could combine this with health data? So it was a little bit of like a, oh my God, there's this thing called climate and health, and I didn't know anything about it. It's so exciting. And then 2022 got involved in futures thinking and foresight, which helped me think about different scenarios. And we're gonna have a slide about that, like what happens if fascism takes over the United States, for example. How is that gonna work, alongside every other aspect of climate change? Also got involved in the climate startup entrepreneurial ecosystem with On Deck, and actually joined HAYVN in 2022 and gave a presentation in May of 2022 about that. I was very excited. Let's create startups. We're gonna solve climate change. 2023 met Jen, who's here today from Publish Your Purpose at Grace Farms. In my memory, I just make a beeline to her and we speak for 20 minutes. And reality, Laura, I think, spent a little bit of time with her, and Laura's like, oh, you should talk to Jen. So I bought the book, and the Publish Your Purpose is a wonderfully titled book about writing books. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe it's not gonna be the giant health insurers are gonna solve it. Maybe it's not gonna be the little climate startups. Maybe I could write a book. And so then in 2024, Jen had a 6-month-long book writing program, which I took, learned how to write a book, struggled over the course of 2024 and 2025 to write the book. And so it brings us right back to HAYVN for tonight. So it's a sort of a full circle of journey. Climate impacts on health is really like sandwiched. It's sandwiched between sustainability, but also health and wellness. So we're like between 2 of the HAYVN pillars. And the sustainability folks aren't always focused on climate impacts on health, and the health and wellness folks aren't necessarily focused on climate. Give me one sec. So when we think about how we approach our regular health, we go to the doctor, we get our blood pressure checked, we get our cholesterol checked. We go, we have an annual physical. This is changing, climate's changing everything. So we're gonna have to initiate new conversations with our doctors. We're gonna have to understand how heat degrades medication. We're gonna have to understand what can we do for our parents if they have long-term power outages. How is medical equipment gonna be powered? It's gonna become part of the whole health and wellness conversation. Which brings us to the book. So my background as a product manager in healthcare is really about summarizing information, being very clear, communicating to millions of people, helping them navigate. Claude AI loves to say that I'm a poet scientist, which is 50% true, because I'm a poet but not a scientist. So I'll take it, like the AI hallucination, because it sounds great, poet scientist. But the poet who can make people feel something without crushing them. And, you know, incorporating my love for sustainability, for just community in general. But there was no clear actionable, there was not like one single source where to go to. There was no guidebook. And part of, you know, the publish your purpose process is asking what's your purpose. And my purpose really was protecting people. And that came out kind of early in that vision. And that's really what the book is about. The other thing is we're unfortunately at the beginning of the horror movie. We're not in the middle, we're not at the end. But what that means is that we still have time. So in a good story, the heroes and heroines, that's us, we have time to gather supplies. We have time to, you know, form alliances. We have time to plan. And we have time to protect the people that we love. And that's what tonight is about, making you the hero of the story. Okay. So part of, it's funny because Leslie has this in the app on her phone and I helped build that and build the chatbot. And, you know, part of being a product manager is taking these giant complex systems and simplifying them. How can I communicate to people? How can I help them navigate this? So when I began writing the book, I had an advantage because I love summarizing things. I love checklists, I love bullet points, I love numbers. So we were talking a little earlier about how can we use AI to help us be more concise in our communication. And so I'm kind of naturally always thinking in those terms. So those checklists come naturally to me. And one of the goals of the book was to make it simple and navigable. And every book is a problem to be solved. And my problem was this. So this is, you know, the entire constellation of climate and health, and it's just overwhelming. So it's a massing sprawl. It's a universe. So heat affects your heart and your kidneys and your medications. Wildfire smoke triggers asthma and cardiovascular disease and mental health. So everything is connected to everything else. So how can I take this massive universe and present it in a way that's useful and simple and straightforward? And the solution actually came from a book that's not about climate at all, but was about food. Superb book, but she's got very short modular chapters, you know, checklists, great graphics, wonderful design, like beautifully designed book. And so this became kind of a model. So how could I do the same thing for climate? How could I make it each chapter self-contained, each chapter about something specific, very straightforward, but really easy to read? Because we're dealing with something, I'll talk about it a little bit later. I call it the litany of death, meaning with climate change, this is a number of people who are dying from cardiovascular disease. This is a number of people dying from air pollution. It becomes unbearable. So we have to find ways of communicating in a really simple and easy to understand manner. And so the book is laid out in this way, starting with heat, because, you know, ultimately heat is, how do I put it? If you've ever been to like Phoenix in the summertime, if you've ever gone outdoors in like 110, 115 degree temperatures, unfortunately, the heat is just going to continue to increase. It becomes incredibly important to understand heat's impact on the body. Air quality, we're going to talk about a little bit later, but I'll start with a fun fact, which is Fairfield County has the worst ozone in the entire like East Coast region of all. Like, it's just unbelievable. So not worst air quality in the state, not worst air quality in the New York metro area. Worst quality of this part of the country. So we're number one, right? We like being number one. We are number one. Natural disasters. So when we think about climate change, you know, these are the biggies: wildfires, water issues, flooding, power outages, extreme cold. But also, how do we prepare? How do we set up our phones? How do we create kind of what amounts to a kind of a digital toolkit? How to build physical emergency kits? And how do we do our family planning to make sure that like family members aren't separated during climate events? We've got insects, food safety, mental health, which I'll talk about in a little bit because it's such a profound issue, particularly with young people. The statistics are they're like overwhelmingly impacted by climate anxiety, even deciding not to have children because they're scared that like the world that we know isn't going to exist. I mean, it's just really, really scary. Disinformation and positive uses of social media during climate events. And also because I've got a health insurance background and this is going to become very important in terms of like denied claims and how can people navigate the health insurance process during disasters, I wanted to spend like a bit of time on that. And now we get to Climate Cat. So Climate Cat started as kind of a joker figure, something with a little bit of humor, but he really did evolve. And so Climate Cat appears throughout the book. He helps soften that message. He comes and gives you helpful tips. Climate Cat's also interesting because in the future, I can use it for children's books. It's a way of dealing with climate communication in a way that's accessible and friendly and overcomes what I call the litany of death. It overcomes approaching it just from a statistics and makes it accessible, somewhat funny, but approachable. Okay. In every great story, we have a hero or heroine, we have enemies, we have a guide. So we actually have three enemies. The first enemy is climate change itself. Heat waves, wildfires, floods, hurricanes, and this is what we think about when we think of climate change. And this isn't actually the biggest obstacle that we're facing. The biggest obstacle, like I said, is going to be our internal response of fear, of freezing, of confusion, of not knowing what to do. We now have the problem of websites disappearing, government agencies which are now completely untrustworthy, disinformation being attacked. Like this is very, very serious. And our trauma response is biological. When we're confronted with a threat, it's freeze or fold or get very, very paralyzed. The third enemy we face is what I call the apocalypse, which is not only do we have to do with climate change, but we have to deal with waves disinformation. We have to deal with the entire medical establishment at the federal level falling apart. We have to deal with states which now have conflicting guidance about obvious things like vaccines. So we have an external crisis in addition to the climate crisis. So we want to kind of situate ourselves. So let's give a case in point. Like just last month in January, the Gulf Coast had its first blizzard warning. New Orleans had snow, and Mobile, Alabama broke a 143-year-old record. So, and these regions are not prepared. They don't have snow plows. Seniors, can freeze. They don't have insulation. But it's not just the physical threat. There's a wonderful word in climate called solastalgia, which means the loss of your home. So it's the loss of the world we knew. In some people's cases, it's the loss of their physical homes, which are getting washed away with flood. There's this incredible sadness and loss. Also along with that is this mental health crisis. We're already in a really kind of a giant mental health crisis in the country with addiction rates, with depression, with anxiety, with a whole variety of ways to escape. And in the process of writing the book, one of the suggestions from the developmental editor was don't write about the country's anxiety, like write about your own experience, what you do, what are the tools that I use. And I thought that was really, really helpful to bring it down to a very personal level. There is another thing in the book that I bring up that when I did a podcast, they were really interested in, and that's the idea from Buddhism of having a refuge. So we can take refuge through the earth as our teacher, right? The land. We can take refuge in our community, this community, all communities, the global community. And also we can take refuge in the teachings or the Dharma, which in this case is science. So, under attack, we can take refuge in the facts. We can take refuge in traditional knowledge. We can take refuge in wisdom. So this is the response that I was talking about, and this is really, as strange as it sounds, beyond climate, beyond the apocalypse, we have our internal psychic response that climate is so gigantic, so overwhelming that we sort of put it out to the side or we don't focus on it. So we have a lot of fear and inertia and not knowing. But the solution to that is action. A lot of research supports that, particularly in climate work. If we can get people to act and feel that they have ownership and autonomy and authority in their own lives, it has a profound impact. So everything gets better when we take action, when you have a plan, when you're prepared, and then all of these monsters are not so scary. We see that happening in Minnesota, where incredible amounts of fear, incredible violence, and yet the courage of these people to come together, and the sort of a blessing to see what true American patriotism really means. That's so powerful. That is a great example of community and coming together. And so when we do that, it starts to thaw. Mm-hmm. The Apocapalooza, this is a slide I did in 2021, when everything seemed relatively stable, and thank goodness, we haven't seen bioweapons, cyber attacks, check, disinformation, check. Hospital evacuations, this really played out in North Carolina during the hurricane, and the flood also played out in California during the giant Paradise fires. Something that we're not understanding is when an area is wiped out, its health system is wiped out, its emergency responders are wiped out, its hospitals you can't get to them, they're not working if there's no electricity. Lack of providers and provider burnout, huge. Political fragmentation, no comment. Public mental health crisis we talked about, uncoordinated response between federal, state, and local health organizations, and violence and civil war. And this is happening simultaneously as all of these climate events. So 3 principles. Climate health is personal and it's local. Action is the antidote to climate anxiety, and families need micro readiness to be prepared for a wide range of climate scenarios. And kind of the book covers this. And getting back to that earlier point about making it simple, accessible, friendly, doable, simple checklists to take overwhelming amounts of information and make it easy for people to put into practice in their families or their houses. So us, okay. These are our top risks right now. So getting back to the air pollution thing, our previous governor called Connecticut the tailpipe of the nation. In other words, 90% of the emissions coming to Connecticut are coming from out of state. So we get the coal-fired power plants in Pennsylvania and Ohio, we get all of the traffic in New York City and all of the other giant metro areas. It's just extraordinary, and the impact on asthma, COPD, bronchitis, allergies, absolutely incredible. Extreme heat, we touched on a little bit, but unfortunately it's sort of like a dial that's just going to keep going and getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And there are enormous amounts of health impacts of that. Tick-borne diseases, Rhode Island actually has the highest rates of Lyme in our area, but we, in our area, have the highest rates of Lyme caused by nymphs, which are the teeny tiny tick babies, which are absolutely invisible, but very, very dangerous because they're great spreaders of Lyme disease. Extreme precipitation and flooding, if you remember 2024, that's when 2 women were washed away in the flash flooding that happened in another part of the state. I mean, it's just, and were killed. So we are not used to that in Connecticut. We're not used to deaths caused by, immensely powerful flash flooding. And wildfire smoke, not just the Connecticut wildfires, but when we were blanketed with orange from the Canadian wildfires, that is a huge risk. And the challenge also is that they all go together. Extreme heat that makes our lungs more vulnerable. You're mixing that with air pollution, you're mixing that with wildfire smoke, tremendously dangerous. So as I was writing the book, the thing that really leaped out to me was air, and I just want to read one sentence. One of the most surprising aspects of writing this book was learning about the amount of garbage we inhale. And there's a detailed breakdown in the book of all that garbage. It's honestly shocking what the components of air are. And the challenge is, it's invisible. Like, we can see the piles of snow outside, we can see the flash flood, we can see people passing out from heat, but air, it's like, looks like a clear day to me, like, we don't see it. So that requires a lot of preparation on our point. So here's our, like, these are the slide, we're number one slide. So we ranked last in New England for air quality, and Fairfield has the highest ozone ratings in the eastern US. And ozone's been called like a chemical sunburn on your lungs. I mean, it's incredibly dangerous, and there's a whole host of health problems that it causes. This is from the American Lung Association, and what it's saying is in Fairfield, basically 1 out of 10 people are at really severe risk from ozone. We've got pediatric asthma, adult asthma, and COPD, and that's just asthma alone. Come on in.
It's terrible.
And that's just a huge number of people. 1 in 10 people in Fairfield are at extreme risk from ozone. Like, that's unbelievable to me. So there's stuff that we can do on a personal level, but there's also something else we can do. Hi, come on in. I was at the Connecticut League of Conservation Voters a few weeks ago and met some folks from Save the Sound. When Dominique Johnson was here, who's our state rep, she made a really interesting suggestion, like, why don't you write a draft bill? Like, why don't you write a climate and health bill? And so I did that, and I've circulated around a little bit, but the Save the Sound folks were like, you know what? Why don't you talk to Eversource, because they have like they have a weatherization program, they have like an energy efficiency program. Why don't you see if you can take some of these ideas and pitch it to them, and as part of Eversource going into like your home or your small business to do your weatherization energy efficiency, let them put like higher rated MERV 13 filters as their, preventing drafts from coming in. Let's see if they can help you prevent smoke and particulate matter from coming in. So that was just last week. We'll see if Eversource bites the bait. But I thought that was like really interesting, that there are ways, particularly as funding dries up for a lot of sustainability initiatives, certainly at the federal level, but unfortunately at the state level as well. And we have recommendations that people can do for their families. What if we could find, an alliance with something that Eversource is they're already in people's houses, they're already making changes to weatherize. Wouldn't that be like a great add-on? Ticks. I think the problem in Connecticut is we're like, we're used to ticks. We're used to Lyme disease. So show of hands, how many people here have either had Lyme disease or know somebody who had Lyme disease? So that's a lot of people. So my mom had it, and it caused Bell's palsy, which is like partial facial paralysis. The danger with Lyme is that it can present as so many other things. It can go radically misdiagnosed. Doctors are like, oh no, it's the flu. Oh no, it's just pain. Oh no, it's MS, it's all of these things. And they miss it, and people can really suffer, and it can really destroy people's lives. So like I say, Rhode Island is, unfortunately, they lead the nation in Lyme disease, just because it's such a small it's a dense population, a very small space. They have lovely forests, lots of deer. They have the moist climate that the ticks love. But the University of Rhode Island is a great resource. In Connecticut, I did not realize until I began writing the book, we do free testing. So if you have a tick, you can actually send it to be tested in Connecticut. There's another disease that's spreading due to climate change. It's called alpha-gal, and it's spread by another kind of tick, the Lone Star tick, which is larger, and it actually produces an allergy to meat. And people aren't aware of it, so they're at a restaurant and they go into anaphylactic shock. It can be incredibly dangerous, and it's not necessarily as well known. But it's this kind of constellation of insect-borne diseases that are increasing due to climate change.
There was that guy that died,
New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Wow.
That's in
New
New
York
York Times, yeah.
Yeah, and it's really, really terrible. So now we're getting to sort of the practice what I preach section, which is Laura and I have been spending a lot of time like putting together supplies, medications. One of the things from working in health insurance is our electronic health records are in a gazillion places. The health insurer has them, CVS has them, your doctor has them. I heard a very good story about emergency room doctors who helped people in like Hurricane Katrina and stuff, and people show up unconscious. They have no idea what your health conditions are. So if there's a way for you to gather your electronic health records, keep them in your phone. We used to do that for Laura's dad with lists of medication, health conditions. Doctor's contact info, batteries. We also put together like emergency supplies if the power goes out for 7 days. That becomes a really big part. But in line of practicing what I preach, here's HAYVN. I did Red Cross training because I thought it would be really helpful, CPR, but also got involved in CERT, which is the Community Emergency Response Group. They have one in Fairfield, they have one in New Canaan, they have one in Wilton. That emerged out of Japan, actually, to help with earthquakes, to help people do search and rescue, put out fires and stuff. Spread to California, which also had its own earthquakes and large fires, but it's has spread to the rest of the country. Really, really helpful. CERT's main job is actually setting up shelters during climate events. So one of the recommendations in the book, we've got, large scale community, you have your household stuff, but the neighborhood level. So essentially putting together a plan with your neighbors. So who's got a generator, who has medical training, who has elderly family members who need check-ins, who's got heaters, portable AC, HEPA filters, how to set up a group text chain, how to have an actual neighborhood level plan of what to do in a crisis. Because one of the things that it's said a little subtly in the book, but I can be a little more direct here, is that, FEMA's disappearing. If all of our crisis responders are disappearing, it's throwing us back to ourselves, to community preparedness, to neighborhood preparedness, to family preparedness. Help may not be coming in the next giant crisis. So even though it's said gently in the book, that's us. That's going to be us individually, us and our families, us and our neighborhood level, us with, Red Cross and CERT, and that's going to be increasingly important going forwards. So I kind of blasted through a little bit. I talk fast, but here's how you can support me. Definitely share the book with your friends or family or colleagues, the organizations that you belong to. I'd love you to leave a review on Amazon. That would be really, really helpful. We talked a little bit earlier about book clubs and discussion groups. We talked a little bit about the Darien Library. So request at local bookstores or library and invite me to speak at your organization or event. So really thrilled that this was my first book talk. I'm also thrilled that it kind of closes the HAYVN loop. This is where it began, and now we're kicking off the next phase of going live with the book. And the importance of community and the ideation that can take place in community, because that's what Felicia's great at. We don't always know what's going to happen when you alchemically mix people together, but things do happen and things get born and startups can form and friendships can form and connections can be made. So that's really kind of the formation of the book, that it's based on this kind of magic that can happen in a space like this. So thank you so much. We'll reserve some time for questions. Laura's going to help facilitate, I think, but we may not be.
I can definitely get us started unless someone has a question.
Felicia.
So I've heard that they are now changing the name of climate to some, the Climate HAYVN, and I was talking to someone from there the other day. They're saying it's all very tricky and people are changing what they're focusing on.
Yeah, I had a conversation with Jen about that, where we were thinking maybe we should call it extreme weather. So we're because people can accept weather, they don't like the word climate, right?
But they were saying water, everybody can understand water and see what's happening.
Snow, yes, cold.
But I just didn't know if you're encountering this or what you've heard.
Not personally, I've certainly seen all the government sites disappearing. I've seen the decades of climate work done by people in the federal government disappearing. And I have actually lists of backups in the book, like where are the backup CDC site, where's the backup site where you can find the National Climate Assessment. So the book is really about redundancy. The back of the book is like filled with resources and links just for that purpose. Like, how do we protect information in an age where things are disappearing? It's very much like the Soviet Union, like things just disappear. So how can the book help preserve those things? But yes, I've definitely seen that as climate funding is drying up. It was in my notes and I didn't bring it up, but something I think about a lot is like the fossil fuel folks bounce out of bed with endless ill will, like every day, like they're filled with malign and malicious energy, and all the climate people are like wringing our hands and helplessness. Like if there's one thing we can learn, it's like, let's bounce out of bed with like that doability. Like they're so infinite, like they're filled with infinite ill will. And we're like, oh, it's too hard, we can't do it. Yes.
So I used to be a public health doctor involved in Y2K planning when we thought that like all the hospitals were gonna like everything was and literally nothing happened. But it was an interesting time. I'm curious whether you've been speaking to large healthcare organizations about what they are doing about this. And
yeah, we have, there's a group called Connecticut Health Professionals for Climate Action, which we would love to have you join. But they were talking about what happened during some of the superstorms with the New York hospitals, which got flooded. And what the hospitals have done is actually moved their generators upstairs, like they physically moved their whole power infrastructure at immense cost, and some hospitals had to shut down for like a year to do this, to actually re-architect themselves, because typically it's in the basement because it's never going to flood. So they literally had to reorganize themselves, particularly for power. But it's so vulnerable. I mean, we can have, COVID came close to crashing the healthcare system. So we're like really one disaster away from an immense crash. Yes.
I'm curious about the Air Now app that you mentioned.
Yeah.
And if that's updated daily and if it's used by people who have vulnerabilities.
Yes, that is an app. We'll have there's another app called IQ Air. There's also ways to get like home sensors, and you can become part of like a sensing network for air. But there's a whole series of recommendations in the book. We can go out and I'll show you.
Recommendations like
for different apps and websites.
The filters for the particulates coming into your home. And
we also, it's funny, as part of like, we're definitely practicing what I preach, so we bought a series of home air filters. We got to replace our MERV filter. We have different monitors inside the house, not just for carbon monoxide, but for, I think, CO2 and particulate matter for PM2,
And it went off one day and we were freaking out. We were like, we're not gonna be able to breathe.
I think it was the toaster oven, or we were burning something. It's like, your house is filled with particulate matter. It's the pizza. It's the pizza.
Yeah. But it's like learning, like we're trying to learn how to do these things and monitor them and incorporate them into our everyday, so that if nothing happens, great, but if something does, we're prepared.
I think to that point that we need to begin checking the air quality index just like we check the temperature. Like that's got to be part of people's sort of
even if you're in good health.
Oh, absolutely.
Without a compromised status.
Absolutely. And we're probably going to have to begin wearing masks outside during bad air quality days.
I know when we were in California, when I used to live out there, they would always say what the air quality was.
Same with the apps here.
Yeah.
Did they do that? Did they talk about it? I mean, like it was on the news all the time, like the air quality.
Yes, we kind of ignored that. Part of the problem with air quality is a variety of different measurements. And so the challenge is we really have to think about ozone, not just air quality as a whole.
And there doesn't seem to be a standard that people know about avoiding certain
it's
places
very
when it's
strange.
X.
It's very interesting, like that's one of the triumphs of the sort of fossil fuel community. Oh, we'll just ship our pollution elsewhere. It's Connecticut, they won't care. They've got other things to focus on. Like, I'm writing my book at the Darien Library, leave me alone.
I'm curious, do the masks, do they do anything for ozone?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that question. I'll have to look. I think it's primarily particulate matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I lived in Beijing for 4 years before moving back to the US in Westport. And one of the reasons that I got more involved with sustainability is, we have all these monitors at home, we use air purifiers everywhere, in the car, in the house, at school. The first thing we will check was not the weather, was this. And when I moved to Westport, I was like, I feel so blessed to be able to breathe clean air, just without the mask. And it's great. And I got involved in sustainability because I thought this is happening here, but it means it's happening now, and it could happen any other place because everything's connected. So it's when the wildfires in Canada happened, I sold everything when I came back. I don't have the air purifiers or the monitors, and I bought everything again. Because I was like, no, I'm gonna buy just for the kids' bedrooms, to make sure I have this, like a Swedish brand of air purifiers and the filters and the monitors, have masks on. I still have my app.
Yeah.
It's crazy that is the reality that we're living.
What's interesting about China is they were able to map. There was a guy named Jun Ma, and he created a national system of monitoring, like all across the country, to pinpoint what is the source of these pollution. And he's got like a national tracking system to be able to be like, ooh, no, that's the factory that's causing it. We don't do anything like that here. And now with sort of the erosion of the Clean Air Act.
They're doing a lot, and it got much better.
Yes.
But also, it's very difficult. Once it's there, it's very difficult to reverse.
Yeah.
So that's,
There's a lot of, so as you can probably tell from my accent, from the UK.
Amazed, that's a big shock.
I do get accused of being Australian a lot. But in the UK, wood burning stoves and people, burning wood fires is pretty rare now. It was very common. Well, it was actually more coal burning when I was a kid.
Yeah.
We didn't have central heating till I was 10 or something. I'm curious as to whether that plays a role here, because nobody seems to talk about it. Everybody I know burns burns wood fires in the winter here, and
Yes, that does add particulate matter. Absolutely. It's funny because that's sort of, we're used to it in England. It gets cold, you burn fire. The British used to burn coal in their houses to warm the house.
Oh, totally. That's what I grew up with.
This is funny to look like, ooh.
Yeah, we didn't have much wood, which is why we burnt coal.
You had a lot of it.
But it also creates, I have asthma. I cannot tolerate being in a room with a wood fire going.
Right.
It immediately makes me wheezy, and so, people not only is that particulate matter going into the air, if you've not got really good ventilation in your house,
It's just sitting there.
Yeah.
The other thing is, and I didn't mention it, but just asthma alone costs Connecticut like $125 million in healthcare costs. It's enormous, and it's increasing obviously for everything that we've been talking about, and people who have it are, we have more and more environmental factors which are triggering asthma attacks. And more childhood asthma, and more childhood asthma that's in specific areas, in polluted areas. Yes.
I love that your book is focused on action and solutions, ideas, like practical things that people can do. It's so great. The question is, do you find as you talk to people about it that people are shutting down because it's like, so much I have to do in order to protect myself, and I'm just gonna ignore it? So, and if so, if you're finding that, what is it that you do to kind of get people to shift other than read this book.
I haven't found it yet. I think it's the whole purpose of my approach was let's make it bite-sized, and you don't have to read it cover to cover like, oh, I'm interested in heat, let me go here. I'm interested in pollution, let me go here. I want to know, how do I create like a family emergency contact list? I'm going to go here. How do I communicate effectively about, this winter storm on social media without it being attacked by trolls? That type of thing. So not yet, I haven't found that. I think when you say climate and health, people are like, whoa, this is a heavy topic. Like, and so that's the whole idea of making it approachable, bringing in climate cat, making it, I don't want to use the word fun because that's not a great word, but friendly, I think is a better word.
We have time for about one more question before we move to the book signing.
Ooh. What do the B Corp people think?
No, I think it's great, and I think, it's, sort of always say, no business is perfect, right? It's like perfectly imperfect, that I think that if we can each try to contribute in our own, bite size, like, it can be overwhelming, right? It can
Yes.
be daunting, and people will shut down if they read it all in one sitting, or, again, can be perceived as a negative. But I think, and I haven't read your book yet, but, if it's presented in a way that reiterates how it is a crisis, but, that you're able to make a difference,
Absolutely.
hopefully, in your own small way, and it's true, I think some people get paralyzed and they do nothing instead of trying to do something, even if
Yes.
you can't be perfect, like
Yes.
not everyone can do everything in the book,
No.
and that's okay. Just try to do something.
Yes. So how about for Jen, who is PYP as a B Corp? This is your first climate book, I believe. Give us your take.
I am excited with how you chose to present this information, because what you're talking about is like the old school, like choose your adventure books, like from when we were younger, or maybe some of us were. And I like that you did it that way, because then when you open it, you can say, all right, what actually matters to me? And I think there's other ways that you could have done this, but I know how thoughtful you were in making sure that it was accessible. So I'm just excited to see how people take even that one, because if all of us in this room just did one thing different, like that alone will have some kind of impact.
Yeah, and the whole idea is that it's a guidebook. It's not necessarily an academic book. It's not simply, you gotta listen to me and do everything I say. It's like, whoa, let's make it a guide for people, or a handbook, and just make it simple and easy to use, somewhat like a cookbook. Like, this is what, you have read the book now, is that correct? Tell Felicia, tell us here.
Oh, you're
Felicia.
Yeah.
No, I love check box means. So I'm excited to just, like you said, I thought it was a great concept, and I was also wondering if there's anybody else that has done this.
Not this specifically, no, we did a lot of research, and
So it's very unique and.
it can be very like, I'm, coming down from the mountaintop, whoa, beware, and it's like, no, that's not a great approach, make it easy.
Sure, I also do agree, I think the approach is really good, because if I live in California, I'm gonna be more concerned about fires, right? But if I live somewhere in the middle of the country that are now seeing, things that they're not seeing before, and they do not have the infrastructure,
Right.
and the government's not being very helpful, and like the power goes out, I'm gonna be more concerned about, like this is what I need to be worried about. And the part that I found really intriguing, because it's not something I thought of before, was, if I had to leave, the medical stuff, especially like if you have, like, I have a mom who's 76, right? So it's kind of like, okay, like what do we have to do there?
Right.
And it really does work as a choose your adventure, because you're not gonna need everything, so that it doesn't
Exactly.
feel overwhelming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right on time, Leslie.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna go eat.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Yeah.